Hey everyone, Kate here. As those of you who've been watching my channel for any length of time will know, I just love making my own lotions and potions at home and experimenting with historical beauty product recipes. It can be a bit daunting to know where to start when you're just beginning, but especially when it comes to historical recipes, you can begin experimenting with just a few key ingredients and turn them into a multitude of products. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 essential beauty product ingredients. But first, I thought I would also share a historical article about making cosmetics at home. It comes from The Cream of Beauty, published in 1931, and outlines what equipment you need to get started, as well as the joys of making your own products. It reads as follows. At one time, every lady of means possessed her still room, where aromatic waters were distilled and various cosmetics compounded. This time is past, and apart altogether from the legal difficulties attendant upon still, women, generally speaking, prefer to buy their scents and cosmetics ready-made. At the same time, there are many who would like to make their own cosmetics, providing this can be simply done. Any woman who takes up this task will find it full of interest. There is a real kinship between the kitchen and the chemical laboratory, and in a well-equipped kitchen, much of the apparatus necessary for compounding of simple cosmetics will be found ready to hand. A small Wedgwood pestle and mortar constitute an essential part of the equipment and can be purchased for a few shillings. A pair of scales, such as are used by photographers, whereby small quantities of materials can be fairly accurately weighed, is another essential requisite. And 2 or 3 graduated vessels for measuring out small quantities of liquids are also necessary. Add to these a glass rod or 2 for stirring, and the kitchen will provide the rest, provided nothing very elaborate is attempted. In the chapters that follow, I shall give recipes for a number of useful face creams, toilet lotions, etc., which you may like to prepare for yourself. Alternatively, you may prefer to have the cosmetics made up or compounded from these recipes by a chemist, in preference to using one of the more expensive proprietary articles. In this event, all that is necessary is to copy out the formula and to take it to a properly qualified chemist who will compound the preparation for you. In many instances, he may, within limits, be able to perfume it to your taste. There is the advantage in adopting one or other of these courses that you will know exactly what you are using. This is not the case with proprietary cosmetics. The great bulk of them, it is true, are quite innocuous, but they are surrounded by an unhealthy atmosphere of secrecy. I am sure that the science and art of cosmetics would be greatly advanced and benefited if the secrecy could be broken down. Alright, I will stop there. That's the end of the part that's really relevant for us today. Thankfully, the science and art of cosmetics has changed, and labeling laws nowadays mean you know pretty much exactly what you're getting. However, that doesn't take away from the joy of making your own, which I think in part is not just the pride in which you get from having made your own cosmetics, but also the ability to customize things exactly how you would like them. The article I just shared goes on for quite a few pages to discuss the various ingredients considered important in 1930s cosmetic recipes. These include water, both plain distilled and floral waters, oils, with a focus on almond oil and mineral oil, lanolin, spermaceti, soap, naturally occurring gums, zinc oxide, starch, essential oils, and alcohol. Pigment was also briefly mentioned, although the book claims it's too complicated a topic to go into any detail about. Now, there are some ingredients on that list that I personally avoid in my recipes, such as the spermaceti and mineral oils, but it's a pretty good list to get started with. Narrowing it down a bit, here's my top 10 list of essential ingredients for making historical recipes. First up, almond oil. Almond oil is my most often used ingredient. This is used in what feels like nearly every historical skin cream and can be used in a variety of other products such as lipsticks and hair oils. An alternative to almond oil, especially for those of you with nut allergies, would be olive oil. It can be directly substituted into pretty much any beauty recipe that calls for almond oil. Beeswax is a great natural thickener for your homemade lotions and potions. Used extensively in skin creams, I've also used it in products such as lip balm and cream eyeshadows. Remember how the whale-based spermaceti was specifically mentioned before? Jojoba oil is my go-to substitute as it has very similar properties. However, while I haven't directly compared the two for obvious reasons, based on my experiences, I suspect that jojoba oil is not quite as thick at room temperature as the spermaceti, so I often add a little extra beeswax into my recipes when I substitute it. Rose water is a beautifully smelling product that I use all the time in cold creams and by itself as a mild toner. It can actually be quite a versatile product, and I made a whole video a while back about some of the different ways to use it, including face masks and hair curling fluids. If you aren't keen on rose, another floral water such as neroli or just plain old unscented distilled water work just as well, and better in some cases. For example, I prefer plain distilled water when making any product that'll be used near the eye, such as my cake mascara. While it's easy to buy all kinds of different beautiful floral waters, I'd recommend just starting with one, either rose or plain, or as I said, something like neroli if you want a floral water and rose just isn't quite your jam. You can certainly collect more as time goes by, but you really only need one or two in your collection. Oh, essential oils. How I love you. I'm counting this as one ingredient, but it really encompasses a range of different oils. However, you really only need one or two versatile oils to get started with. My top picks would be lavender, rose, and peppermint. These last for ages, and my collection has been built very slowly over time. And besides, I should mention you really only need a large collection if you're going to be making more complex scent blends and perfumes. All of this is certainly not needed for your average makeup or skincare recipe. Speaking of perfumes, next up on my list is alcohol. Sometimes I use a perfumer's alcohol, and sometimes I just use vodka, depending on the recipe. Alcohol is used in perfumes, as well as in many Victorian and Edwardian beauty products, as a preservative. I don't do many of these recipes because the alcohol is very harsh on your skin, but it was used all the time. This again is really only essential if you're going to be making perfumes, which I consider essential. I love perfume blending. Gum acacia powder, also known as gum arabic, can be a bit harder to get hold of, but it is very useful in a variety of historical recipes as a binder and a glue. I've used it in makeup, in hair curling fluid, botanical glue, and for art purposes, such as making watercolors from scratch. I don't have a video yet on that last one, but maybe one day. Starch is used as a base in nearly every historical face powder and sometimes for rouges as well. This can be cornstarch, arrowroot starch, or even potato starch. Arrowroot was often used historically and is probably my favorite of the starches to use in makeup. Plus, it can double duty as a dry shampoo. While glossed over in the 1930s article, I consider pigments an important part of making beauty products at home. These ingredients include zinc oxide, micas, and iron oxides, as well as botanical pigments such as alkanet or hibiscus powder. I use these all the time for making makeup as well as in my handmade soap. And if I'm feeling extra fancy, sometimes I'll add a small pinch to historical skin creams. If you're only making makeup, zinc oxide, a red pigment, a black pigment, a pigment to match your eye color, and a brown pigment if you have darker skin is enough for most recipes. And lastly, let me just mention preservatives. While they often get a bad rap, there are some great preservatives out there that'll help to extend the life of your beauty products and keep you safe from any potential mold growth. Personally, for a broad-spectrum preservative, I like to use Optifin Plus, as it is formaldehyde-free and paraben-free, and I've had great success with it in my skin creams. Although technically, with skin creams, you can get away with omitting a preservative as long as you keep the final product in the fridge, but even in these optimal conditions, they don't last nearly as long. However, a broad-spectrum preservative is an essential ingredient if you want to make water-based eye products. You don't need it for oil-based shadows, but if you're making something like mascara or a liquid eyeliner, it's pretty much essential for safety reasons. For water-free oil-based products of all kinds, vitamin E is a handy ingredient to have. It wasn't typically used in historical recipes, but it helps to prevent the oils from going rancid as quickly, and I try to add it whenever I remember. It really helps to keep these products fresh for significantly longer. And that was my list. Those are my top 10 ingredients to get started with anyways. There are tons of other really fun and interesting ingredients you can add to your recipes, and it's tempting to just buy all the things, but I've found keeping a smaller stock of favorite ingredients produces much less waste and just as lovely products. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite beauty ingredients are, and if you feel like I've missed any essentials, or if there's any fun, frivolous extras that you would like to recommend. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! This video is made possible through the generous support of my Patreon members. Thank you.